Order.
The Draft Financial Services and Markets Act 2000, Ombudsman Scheme, Fees, Regulations 2024.
I call the Minister to move the motion.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to serve under you, Madam Chair. I beg to move that this House considers the Financial Services and Markets Act 2000, Ombudsman Scheme, Fees, Regulation 2024, which are made under powers in the Financial Services and Markets Act 2023. The House may be aware that the Secondary Legislation Scrutiny Committee raised this SI as an instrument of interest in their secondary report published on the 5th of September. This statutory instrument will enable the Financial Ombudsman Service, or FOS as it's commonly known, to charge case fees to claims management companies and relevant legal professionals when they bring cases to the FOS on behalf of complainants. The FOS enables consumers and financial services firms to resolve disputes without having to go through the courts, which can be expensive and time-consuming for both parties. To deliver a service that is cost-free to consumers, the FOS is funded by a combination of case fees paid by firms subject to complaints and an annual levy on industry. The FOS is designed to be an accessible service which consumers can use free, and the majority of consumers raise their complaints directly with the FOS. However, some consumers choose to use claims management companies, CMSCs, or legal professionals to bring claims to the FOS on their behalf, and collectively they are known as professional representatives. These professional representatives normally take a cut of any compensation awarded as payment for their services, and this payment can be as much as 30% of the compensation awarded to a consumer. Currently, while these professional representatives can make money from bringing case to the FOS, they cannot be charged for doing so. Many of these professional representatives, I may add, act responsibly. However, there is evidence that some are taking advantage of the cost-free nature of the service that the FOS provides. Rather than properly assessing complaints and taking forward those with merit, these representatives submit large numbers of complaints which are poorly evidenced. This behaviour we've seen is negatively impacting the ability of the FOS to promptly resolve other consumer complaints, as firms are required to pay a case fee of £650 regardless of whether or not a complaint is upheld against them. This practice also has significant costs for industry. Firms subject to large numbers of complaints from professional representatives can face significant bills in case fees, despite not being found to have committed any wrongdoing at all. The government has also noted concerns from firms experiencing this treatment might feel pressured into settling claims early, and in order to reduce the overall cost to a firm, they may simply offer to settle for an amount below the £650 case fee, even where they feel the claim itself is without merit. So in order to address this exploitative practices, this instrument that we're debating today will enable the FOS to charge a case fee to professional representatives for bringing complaints on behalf of claimants. This will ensure there's a financial incentive for those professional representatives to carefully consider the merits of any cases they are bringing. And there will now be a cost to flooding the FCA with templated complaints that have a low chance of success. Charities bringing complaints on behalf of consumers are not included in this instrument, and therefore they will not be charged by the FOS. And of course, the FOS remains completely free for consumers to access directly. The FOS will be responsible for determining exactly who is charged and any level of fees. This is in line with how the system already works for financial services firms subject to complaints. In anticipation of this instrument, the FOS consulted on its proposed detailed approach to charging fees to professional representatives. It published a statement on 15th of November detailing the feedback it had received to the consultation and its initial response. And in this feedback statement, subject to Parliament approving this instrument today, the FOS proposes that professional representatives will be charged a fee of £250 for each case that they bring. When the FOS finds in favour of the claimant represented by the professional representative, the fee will be reduced to just £75. Each professional representative will also not be charged for for the first 10 cases that they bring each year. In this way, we hope the FoS has sought to disincentivise bad behaviour while ensuring that the impact of those professional representatives bringing cases with merit is minimal. If this instrument is approved today, the FoS will confirm its final plans, having considered the responses to its consultation. The approach taken through this SI ensures that the FoS will remain cost-free to consumers while ensuring that the poor behaviour of some professional representatives does not undermine the ability of the FoS to deal with consumer complaints properly. Therefore, I recommend these regulations to the House today.
The question is that the committee has considered the draft Financial Services and Markets Act 2000 Ombudsman Scheme Fees Regulations 2024. Shadow Minister.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Harris. Well, look, I think the Minister and I are going to have an outbreak of unanimity in just about everything we do. I think we've yet to find something we disagree on. Members will be aware that this legislation was originally due to be implemented in May, but unfortunately we got caught up in a bit of a general election, which didn't go quite so well for us. But it was delayed, as I say, due to the general election. So therefore, the opposition kind of fully supports this, and as you'll imagine. The Minister made a very good point about why this is incredibly important. There are far too many people who are gaming this system. And I think that, to support what she was saying, actually this incurs a great deal of cost onto banks, and that cost inevitably gets reflected onto consumers. So although it sounds, in the first instance, like these claims management companies are doing everybody a favour, actually what they're doing is increasing the cost of financial services for absolutely everybody. So this is something we are wholly supportive of. If I may, I have a couple of questions. The first is, can the Minister also set out how the Treasury is proposing to monitor the changes to make sure they go according to plan, and just making sure that where you have a two-tier system, that some vulnerable people aren't going to find themselves unwittingly not being represented if they were to use one of these claims management companies, just to make sure it isn't badly affecting some people. The other question I was going to ask was on a sort of technicality. You may not necessarily know the answer to this specifically, but the first 10 claims can be are free of charge, and then it's £250, as she said, and then reduced to £75 if it's a successful claim. Can the claims management companies put in class actions, so therefore potentially put in an action or a claim for, let's say, for example, 1,000 people 10 times, and therefore hope to get a lot of people being covered, thereby increasing potentially the return that they could get for each claim being, as I say, a class action rather than an individual claim? Or is it the intention that this will be, each claim will be an individual case rather than a group of cases? But if she doesn't necessarily know the answer to that now, please feel free to write to me. But as I say, Mrs. Harris, we have absolutely no intention of opposing this. It's a fantastic piece of legislation brought in by the previous government, and it's good to see that it has survived the general election, unlike the Minister who signed it off in the first place. Thank you very much.
Minister.
Thank you very much. I thank the Shadow Minister for his support so far in all the SIs that we've debated. Long may it continue, but I have a feeling there may be some things we disagree on in the future. But there was cross-party support for the enabling power behind the instrument when it was debated during the passage of the Financial Services and Markets Act 2023. And he will remember at the time I supported the government as well, because a lot of the legislation was fit and right for the sector. We are committed to tackling poor behaviour from professional representatives, as the previous government was as well, and we want to ensure that the FoS can focus on promptly resolving consumer complaints, as he says, and reduce this impact of complaints in financial services firms when they're not appropriate. One of the things he raised was about how long it will take the FoS to implement these rules and how will we monitor them. So if the SI is approved, then we expect that the FoS will shortly announce when it starts to charge fees. We will then work closely with the FoS and the FCA to progress this important work, but there isn't really a deadline on it. We just have to see how it progresses through after this SI. I guess they're waiting for us to approve this before they can take on the work, but we work with the FCA and FoS, as he can imagine, very closely to monitor the progress. I'm afraid I'm going to have to come back to him on this technical question, because I'm not quite sure if we've got any answers. If the officials know, I think it looks like the officials want me to write to you, if that's okay. I just want to thank the House for its consideration of these draft regulations, because I do think that they may sound simple, but actually it's having a huge impact on people who are bringing forward the complaints and how much it's costing them. It will play an important role in ensuring that the FoS can properly focus on resolving consumer complaints, and a lot of these consumer complaints will come from people who live in our constituencies, and reduce the impact of the complaints on financial services firms, which is just spurious. So, thank you all very much for supporting me and for turning up on a Monday evening. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
The question is that the committee has considered the draft Financial Services and Markets Act 2000 Ombudsman Scheme Fees Regulations 2024. As many of their opinions say aye.
Aye.
Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Committee Room 9,